happening. Wanted to give you just a quick rundown of who I am. I've been with PMI for over 14 years. The first 12 of those years was in operations. So I worked in, at that time, what was considered integrated services, supporting all the products. We were the back office. My team handled everything from reviewing applications to audit to membership. We supported the REPs when that was a product or a service that someone could. I'm losing everybody. Okay. So that's
Glenn, I just stopped sharing so that you could start. That's all.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. And you saw a little bit about my history. I've been in operations most of my life, working at Discover Card, working at a third-party provider of bank technology and check clearing when that was a thing. It's not a thing anymore. I also was certified as an information capture professional through an organization called TAWPI, the Association for Work Process Improvement. And they were purchased by the IFO, the Institute for Financial Operations. Just wanted to give you a quick story about that. So just like if you've taken the exam, PMP exam prior to March of 2020, you may have gone to a site to sit for the exam. To take the ICP exam, I went to a site also. I live in Chester County, Pennsylvania. There's a small airport. The Chester County Airport has probably one runway. And that was where I was taking the exam. So I showed up that morning, went to the terminal. And when I say I went to the terminal, I walked into a building that could fit like 3 people, thinking that was where my exam was going to be. I was told no, it would be done in the hangar across the street. So we walked across the street into the hangar, upstairs, up to the 2nd floor, and they were working on a jet in the hangar. And I was told that if the jet started up and they took it out of the hangar, here are some earplugs you can put in to drown out the noise. They did start up the jet, they did take it out, and I did pass. So that all worked very well, but it was a little different experience than what we try to give our stakeholders at PMI. Let's see, here we go.
Catherine, I see you raised your hand. Did you have a question?
No, I was trying to applaud. He passed his test despite the challenges.
Thank you. It was, I have to say, it was one of the unique experiences that I can say of my life too. I was very concerned, a little nervous taking an exam like that. And, I didn't ask for any more obstacles, but sometimes we have to rise to the occasion, which I know many of you have done, to take this exam. Now, can you see this in presenter mode, or are you seeing everything?
We're seeing everything at the moment, Glenn.
I'm trying to get it into.
If you go up to the top of the screen and hit the presenter, the presentation icon.
How about now?
Not yet.
Perhaps it's on your other screen, the presentation.
Yeah, when I open it, it pops into a different window, Glenn.
So what I see right now is one screen and then the next slide. Is that not?
We're actually seeing your PowerPoint with all of the slides down the right-hand side, and
Well, that's not a good thing.
Normal tools for PowerPoint at the top. So I don't know, maybe there's a different screen you want to share.
I wanted to. Let's try this one more time. I apologize for this. Let's, here we go.
There you go.
Just, you see, just the one screen?
Just the one screen, just your presentation screen. We're in good shape
Excellent.
now.
Thank you. I apologize for that. Thank you for your patience. So yes, I would like to answer questions as we go. Please feel free to ask, whether you want to put up your hand, put something in chat. We will get to it. I will answer it. If I don't have the answer, I will find the answer and provide it for you after, you know, I will send it all off to the your chapter so you get the information that you need. So one of the things that we released last year was the certification framework. And you can see here, this is a copy of the earliest version of this. This has been in development for 7-8 years. There were a lot of different opinions about how this should look. There were a lot of different opinions about the information that should be provided. But you know, what we know now, I mean, what is crystal clear in the marketplace, and not just for project managers, but literally for everyone, is that corporate ladder that existed before does not exist. You now can and probably will need to move about, maybe take lateral moves to get to where you want to be in your professional career. We want to show through this certification framework, which you can find at PMI.org, what our offerings are. So you can chart out your course that you want to do to get where you want to be. And we were talking earlier about, you know, how the PMP has opened doors. You can see that, you know, we have something literally for anyone, wherever they are in their career. You know, the PMP has always been the gold standard, has always been, you know, front and center, but there are specializations. One of the things we found during the pandemic was the RMP had much more interest than what it did prior to the pandemic. Organizations began to look at how do we mitigate those risk situations that, let's face it, they didn't have to mitigate before. It wasn't happening. Things were occurring so rapidly that became a focus, and we continue to see it as a focus. We have begun to offer a number of micro credentials. So the Agile Hybrid Project Pro, the Agile Metrics, talk a little bit about Citizen Developer, the Citizen Developer Business Architect, and then we get into construction, and we'll be releasing another 2 or 3 of those this year, and then the organizational transformation. We saw, you know, PMI started in about 2017 to go through their digital transformation, but we are seeing the disruption that has occurred with the pandemic causing companies to either transform or disappear. And we realize that it is important that people have the information they need to make the decisions to make that transformation successful. So as you go in to that framework, you click on a page. Here's the PMP page. We give you some at a glance views of what you need. A little bit about it, the exam, the value statement of how the PMP can help you, when you should apply, the experience that you need, and then other credentials or certifications that are available to you with this experience, the 3+ years. So each page looks like this. It gives you the information that you need to determine whether this is, maybe you want this to be your next step. Maybe you want it to be a step down the road and you want an interim step. So if we go ahead and look at that. So here is the Citizen Developer Practitioner page. You can see what, this is becoming much more prevalent in the workplace. How do companies, how do they navigate a workforce scarcity that's out there to get the people they need, the tech people, the people that have the skills that they need to help them be successful with their projects being the delivery of value. And one of the ways they can do that is through the citizen developer, where they are creating in-house the programs that they need to run their business. Any questions? We'll go back to the framework, but are there any questions about that?
Glenn and Sandy, I had a question about the citizen developer. Is that kind of focusing on literally like software development, or is it development in other aspects? That's what I was a little unclear of looking at that.
It encompasses all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more of a holistic view of what a citizen developer practitioner is, because you could literally have any technology that you're working on, what application, it kind of putting up those guardrails of how do you do it, how do you do it successfully, how do you work within the environment to make sure that you're meeting the requirements and expectations of your stakeholders internally. So it's pretty a holistic view of that.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
So PMI released a new, if you will, exam. It's been a year now. Actually, the exam was delayed twice. One of the dates that it was going to be released was in July of 2020, and based on everything that was occurring, we made a decision to delay it, and we rolled it out in January instead, so people could get through. They had studied material for the prior exam. We wanted them to be confident when they took the exam, and that's why we waited, so that we could get everybody through that had studied for the prior exam. There are changes that were made when we develop the ECO or a new exam. We are talking about our stakeholders. So we talk to practitioners, we talk to organizations that hire the practitioners, the people that work with them. We talk to a lot of sources to ensure that we gather the information we need to remain relevant. Is this exam relevant to a project manager in the field today with what they are required to do? And as you can see, we made a radical change. The former exam content pretty much went through the life cycle of a project. We're now down to 3 domains: people, process, and business environment. And as anyone knows who has the PMP or literally any of our credentials, the talent triangle and what is expected in regards to PDUs for each one of those sides there. So 42% of the exam questions made up are people. It is important. It became very, very obvious that project managers must work with others throughout the organization. They are not the dictators. They must have those what we used to call soft skills about being able to work with others to get things done. And, it includes project team governance, things like negotiation, mediation skills, conflict resolution. You know, it is the gamut of working with people in regards to running the project. And as you get into many of the agile ways of working, you know that as Scrum leaders and Scrum masters, it's very, very important that communication skill is honed and refined and continues to grow. 50% of the exam is what used to be kind of the technical side of that. It aligns to those current knowledge areas. You know, we're talking about risk registers, we're talking about work breakdown structures, critical paths, those things that you studied before about how to be successful in a project, charting out what needs to be done, selecting the methodology, whether it be hybrid, waterfall, or agile. And then also too, that change management portion where, you know, you are creating a change in an organization, you are delivering value, but that change management is a huge piece to get the people that will be working the process or creating the widget in the future to understand why the change is being made and have that be a part of the process of success. And also that transfer of the project knowledge where you're handing this off to somebody and that has to go successfully, or what you've just done is not going to help the organization to the level that is anticipated. And the last part is business environment. And you know, we talk about, and even from this picture, you think about health and security and safety, working in a highly regulated industry, working with government entities, NGOs, to make sure that things are done according to whatever is required by them. But also too, one of the things that you have to be concerned about is, you know, privacy laws now, the GDPR and the new PIPL in China. They're all things that have to be included in your business plan to ensure that you're delivering the value that you need and has been promised by the project. Any questions about that? So the exam questions, you see the percentage, we just saw the percentage breakdown in regards to where those questions would fall in the domains, but they could be, it is actually now 50% agile and hybrid and 50% predictive. So across the total value delivery spectrum, you need to understand, you know, what ways of working is important for whatever project and be able to answer those experientially from your prior assignments. So that is why the PMP, it sticks out and is the gold standard. Is it is the only experiential certification out there for project managers. You know, many times there are classes you take, you sit through 35 hours and then take the exam. The PMP requires you have a minimum of 36 months experience of leading and directing across all domains on projects to minimally qualify to sit for the exam. The new exam is 180 questions. Prior was 200, but we are going to score still the same number, which was 175. Those 5 other questions are field tested to see how they perform and we look across the width and breadth of demographics to see if those questions perform the way we think they should before they're ever used to be scored in an exam. There's 230 minutes to complete the exam. We started with 1 break when we went to OPT or online proctored exams. And now there are 2 10-minute breaks. We realized that 4 hours is a lot of time to sit for an exam. So you get 2 10-minute breaks. If you're taking a paper-based exam, which there aren't many, if any, right now, they do not have breaks. But you need to understand that when the first break comes up, you will get a page that says, have you answered all the questions? 1 to 60. You go back, you look at your answers, you attest to the fact that you have answered them, then that 10-minute break starts. If you're not back in 10 minutes, understand the clock's going to start again, so you will lose time. But you also cannot go back and look at questions 1 to 60. Second scheduled break is after question 120. Again, you cannot go back to questions 1 to 120 to answer anything when you're back from your break. And we have begun to use some different types of questions. Before it was multiple choice, there was 1 STEM, there were 4 choices, you selected the best choice. But now we're looking at some multiple responses. There may be 7 choices and you have to pick 4. There's some matching, there's some hotspots, and there's some limited fill in the blank. So it's not, for those of you who took the test years ago, we are starting to look at some different types of questions. They're all psychometrically sound. So we're not hurting anybody by that, but it helps to show that you truly do understand the concepts that what a project manager faces on a day-to-day basis. Any questions?
Hi, Glenn. This is Zach. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I see that, you mentioned that there's no breaks during the paper exam, but when you do take the paper exam, do you have, I guess, milestones at what'd you say, 60 and 120, where you cannot refer back on the paper exam as well?
No.
Or is that, okay.
No, you have, you would have the entire exam in front of you. It comes as a booklet. Everything's there, yeah.
Thank you.
You don't have those milestones. And I don't know if we'll be going back to paper-based exams anytime soon. The environment has changed dramatically. Prior to we closed the GHQ March 13th of 2020. Prior to that, there were a couple of organizations that wanted to have testing at their local. One was in upcountry Canada. And yes, I was the one who was going to have to fly there. So people who all work for the same organization can take the exam together. But I mean, we can't even consider that and don't know that we will moving forward. Everything is, as you know, still in flux. There are countries that have curfews now, and you really can't fly out there. So 3 things.
Glenn, could I interrupt for just a moment?
Sure.
We're getting a lot of feedback all of a sudden. It appears most people have their mics muted, but if you don't, if you could please mute your mic, and hopefully that'll resolve our issue.
Thank you. So 3 things that you need to review if you're thinking about taking an exam. The exam content outline, which can be found, all these can be found on PMI.org. The reference list, it is the top 10 works, publications that are used to validate questions. They can come from many different sources, with the PMBOK guide being just one of them, but it is the reference list is the top 10 sources that are used to validate. And then
Glenn,
the handbook.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, Glenn. It appears the issue may be with your mic. Did you adjust it in some manner or something? Because we don't seem to be getting the feedback except when you're talking. So let me see if there's anything you can maybe check on your side real quick.
Are you still?
Yeah, unfortunately, as soon as you start to talk, we get kind of a rambling rumble.
Oh, that's not feedback. That's my voice. So, I'm sorry. I'm not sure exactly.
Well, Glenn, I tell you what, let's try this. Why don't you try muting your mic and then unmuting it and see if maybe it clears itself.
I did. I've done
Okay.
it twice now.
Yeah, well, it seems to be an issue with your mic. Unfortunately, we'll just need to kind of live with it and make the best out of it. Sorry.
I apologize to everyone. So if you are, Ike, if you are considering taking the exam, please review these 3 resources that are very, very important to next steps and how to move forward. So one of the things that has changed is in, I believe it was August of last year, the PMBOK Guide 7th edition was released. It is very, very different than the 6th edition. Each of the editions earlier than the 7th were really iterations of the prior PMBOK Guide. This is not. And I wanted to look at some of the changes there so that you can see that this is a quick little view of some of the bigger changes that were made. If you look down at the 4th project application in the 6th edition and prior editions, it always said for most projects, most of the time, the 7th edition, any project, anytime. So it is not prescriptive. It provides information to help you, not only if you're a project manager, but if you're a stakeholder, if you're a product owner, if you are a product sponsor, it will help you to understand what is occurring in the project and what your responsibilities are. So the new 7th edition talks about principles that guide the mindset, actions, and behaviors related to how you deliver value for your project. Very, very important. Before we emphasized on how, not what or why, and now we're doing a little bit more of that what or why, because that's really what we found that the project management profession was looking for. Before you were told, look, you need to study and memorize the ITTOs. That's not as important now as knowing how to utilize your knowledge and interacting in the different, whether they are the ceremonies in Agile or the kickoff meetings, how you use those productively in your way of working to be successful. The 7th edition is a combination of 2 different books, the standard for project management and the guide to the body of knowledge. Again, very, very different than what was offered before. You can see that the standard talks about the value delivery, the principles, and then the PMBOK guide, how you tailor those tools that are available to you to bring the value, the models, the methods, the artifacts that can be used, and something that's called project performance domains, we can talk a little bit more about that. And it's really important to note that, under those project management principles, statements that guide the behaviors of people involved in projects to produce desired outcomes. Very, very important that we look at, how does this work together to bring, that value to the organization. And tailoring a framework and key questions to help teams tailor the delivery approach. What's the best way to bring that value? Based on what the project is, if you're building a bridge, you don't necessarily want to be agile. There are things that have to be done to make sure those sides meet. And it's important that they understand what needs to be done and how to get to that goal. You can see here under the project management principles. So that continual evaluation and adjusting the project alignment, the business objectives and intended benefits and value. The project economy is here. Organizations now are doing things that will require the projects to ensure that they meet the challenges of the disruption and do the right things to achieve that intended benefit. Companies now have to transform, and the project delivery is a great asset in making that work. Really, creating the flexibility to support any approach, method, or framework is important. Your organization may decide to change from a waterfall to an agile or do some type of hybrid. And with the PMP, you can say, yeah, I have experience in them and I can act successfully and perform successfully in those environments. So talking about the models, the methods, and the artifacts, the 7th edition takes a different view of what is important in the profession. You can see here it's a summary of those things that have changed, whether it is from the outside or from the inside, whether it's competitive market developments, disruptions, or maybe internal value delivery and the benefits that are needed. We touch on all of those. So I wanted to go back to the framework. If anyone has any questions about anything else, I wanted to go back to the framework just to see if there were any questions about that. It can be found, and I believe the last slide will give you the URL to reach it. But again, it will expand based on the offerings. Like I said, there are already, I think, 3 more. There's going to be more this year. And one of the things we're looking to do is be able to have an individual be able to take these, align them to what they want their career to look like, so that they can say, hey, I can move from here to here to here. So you can move it around based on what your interests are, what your desire is for your career, and where you want to go. Because that's really what it's all about. Is, you know, what's going to give you that professional success and satisfaction. Any questions about anything? I know that was very, very quick, but I wanted to leave time to talk really about anything PMI related, so that you could get those. Kim, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so quick question. So I'm in legal, and I was wondering, does PMI offer the legal project management certification?
They do not. I believe there is one out there. And it is something that we've talked about, but I do not know if they have, I do not believe that's been started yet.
Do you think it's something that PMI would eventually?
That's a very good question. I know that, like I said, we have talked about it before. I'm not really sure where it stands as an idea. I can find that out, but I'm not privy to that conversation right now.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a quick question for you, Glenn. With the specialization or the micro certifications, are most of those offered via at your own pace learning, or do some of those have actual classroom based? I guess I'm kind of thinking back to my time studying for my PMP, or when I was doing my disciplined agile training. Those I had to attend classes for. Whereas some of the, it looks like a lot of the micro certifications may be available for, don't require a classroom setting. They can be more of a self-paced environment.
Yeah, I don't believe, if you look at, the special, I don't think any of them require the classroom learning. I do believe there are some education requirements for the RMP and SP, but no, there would be things that you would learn at your own pace and then take the exam. And those micro credentials, so everything to the right of SP, they are all for, they do not need to be renewed. So there is no renewal requirement.
Hey, Glenn, what's the future of the ACP and the disciplined agile, with the exam for the PMP really now encompassing a lot more agile and hybrid? Is the future to really keep separate certifications, or
Yes.
do you envision some coordination or consolidation in the future?
I do not. There is no design right now to mesh those together, if you will, or smash them together. There is no talk of that whatsoever. The ACP is for those individuals that have agile experience, but not necessarily led and directed. So they could be on an agile team. The PMP is you've led and directed those projects. So they're two very different ways of working. Same with the discipline agile. So the discipline agile is looking at the entire landscape of agile methods, and you can pick the one that is right for you and right for your team and right for the organization. So you don't, you're not in a particular type of, we like to call agile jail, where you have to follow a certain rule. You can follow the ones that help you and get you to where, and your team to where they need to be. But there isn't any plans to sunset one. No.
Hi, Glenn. Oh, I'm sorry. I had a question. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Sure. So I had a question about the requirements to sit for the PMP exam. I thought you had it on one of your slides that it was 3 years of relevant experience, and then I forget the number, but a certain amount of credit hours towards that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to answer that part, but go ahead.
Sure. So I went back and got my master's in engineering management, and I saw on the website that it didn't sound like courses you would take for an MBA would count. But I guess how rigid and structured does a class have to be to count for that? And is it the equivalent of one class is 1 credit hour or every hour spent in that class?
Okay, so to answer your second question first, it's every hour in that class counts towards an hour of that. And the 35 contact hours need to be anything to do with project management. I mean, any facet of it, but it needs to be project management. And, you know, if your MBA courses had project management involved, that's great. You can pick, you know, different courses and show that, you know, 10 hours of this one was project management, 5 of that, but they do all need to be project management.
Okay, thank you. A lot of the courses I took were kind of like, you know, you have your course and then you have sort of an 8-week project to go along with that. So I would consider something like that to be, you know, fair game to count for that. Would you agree?
Yeah, if it's, yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We are very happy to announce too that starting very soon, and I would say probably the next week or two, we are moving audit. The audit process will become all digital. So you will just upload your documents instead of getting them all signed for those of you who have been audited, and then have them sent in under cover, and you'll be able to upload your documents right into the system, and it is going to make it, you know, much easier for everyone.
Awesome, thanks, Glenn.
I have a related question regarding the requirements. So I've been in a market research consulting role for the last 7 years, and about 3 or 4 of them I've been a project leader or project manager for these client service kind of research projects. First question is, does that off the bat, I mean, maybe that's not a traditional sense of project management that a PMP would cover, but would that be relevant enough to qualify for the experience of having several years in that regard?
Yes, if you're working on a project and you led and directed that project, yes, it should definitely be counted. Now, did you say 17 years?
Seven years.
So yeah, all the experience has to be within the past 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to bring that up again too.
Yeah. And when in regards to the 35 hours, I don't think that I have any, specific courses or education that would count towards that. So in that case, if would you recommend taking courses through PMI or, studying for a CAPM or something else in order to, in sort of the most efficient way to achieve those education hours, or what would you recommend? So
you ask a very sensitive question. And let me just say, before I give my answer, that we are ASI certified, so we really can't recommend. We can't be the person who delivers the exam and recommends the training too.
Sure.
There are courses available through PMI, and there are courses offered through what used to be the REP program, is now the ATP program. They offer courses also that will prepare you on the information you need for this exam currently.
Does that also include, I've noticed like with LinkedIn Learning, with other platforms like that for the credits for the education? Because in LinkedIn Learning, they have, they'll have a blurb and it'll say, this counts as like 1 PU or something to that effect.
Yeah, so let me clarify something. So I'm using hand gestures only so I can clarify. So we're talking about 2 different things. So if you are applying for the exam, you need to have 35 contact hours that are associated with project management. after you obtain it, that's when you accrue PDUs. So LinkedIn Learning may not be your best, how do I say this? Your best value in receiving information you need it in, sometimes those classes are 1 hour at a time. So you would be taking 35 1-hour courses to prepare you for the exam. If that helps you, great. But I just wanted to make sure we understood the terminology, the contact hours and PDUs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I'm sorry. And I was also thinking about that line of thinking when the topic of like classes or applying the college courses or any kind of additional training, would that fall into that same bucket?
For the contact hours,
Yes.
if I understand your question, yes, they would include that.
Okay.
If you took a course a semester course, and it meets for, I don't know, 45 hours, and like I said, 10 hours of that was project management, yeah, you definitely can include those 10 hours.
Thank you.
Yeah. So PMI may begin face-to-face meetings again. Right now, they're looking at the second quarter of this year, depending on various factors that none of us have control over. I know that is something that many, many people have missed. So you mentioned earlier about I'm from GHQ. We just reopened the building in October. I've been in the building 4 times since then. I go in once a week to work. Yesterday I was in there, and I was there with 2 other people. So it helps, I go in only because I like a change of pace, a change of scenery. But we are going to begin, my point being is we probably will begin face-to-face again, because I cannot overemphasize the importance that chapters such as yours and the volunteers that are involved, how important they are to the success of PMI and what we do and the advocacy we do and the enthusiasm that teams like yours have for the profession. And meeting in person has always been something that helps us all connect. And I think all of us want to start doing that again. And hopefully this year, more sooner than later, we'll be able to do that.
Hopefully. Were there any other questions out there? Did anyone have anything else? Oh, Catherine just put a question into the chat. Catherine, did you want to speak up, or do you want me to?
Sure. We've been having a lot of strategic changes in our organization, and we're really trying to align the strategy and goals with the projects we select. And we came across the strategic project management, few websites, something seems to be in Australia. They have some sort of certification about it. And I was just wondering if anybody here is familiar with it, or if there might be some sort of micro certification in the pipeline with PMI for that.
Well, the transformation micro-credentials will help with that dramatically. You can go out and look at those. So if you go out into the PMI.org, you'll find the boxes. There's Organizational Transformation Foundation, Orchestration, and I'm sorry, but the last one is.
I was looking at those. I wasn't sure if they were for that, or it almost looked like an organization culture change, but I didn't see it as aligning strategy with the projects. I didn't see that correlation in the just limited description of the courses.
Yeah, I know that is what they're intended to do.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You mentioned earlier that there might be some other certifications or specializations that are coming out. Any idea what we might expect or anything you can share?
So we will be releasing a number of construction micro-credentials. They are they're based on modules that you can take if you want one at a time. You can read everything and take the exam together. It's however you want to approach it. I hesitate on talking about any others because we've had to do some strategy realignment also. And as many of you know, we no longer have a CEO. And we have an interim CEO who is excellent, but when a new CEO comes in, I don't know what the strategy is going to be. It could change dramatically. So I don't want to speak up about anything that's been talked about because that might not be on their radar. And we know nothing. We've heard nothing yet. I'm hoping soon that the search committee will find somebody. So we'll have a new CEO.
Understood. Are there any other questions or anything that you would like Glenn to clarify or expand upon that he may have already covered?
Let me also say that my email address is glenn.farrow@pmi.org. If you ever have a question about anything, please feel free to reach out. That's why we're there. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. It may be 24 hours, but please feel free to ask questions. It's important that you have the information you need to be successful.
Great. Well, that's a very generous offer. Thank you, Glenn.
And here is the website or the URL to get to the certification framework. We're probably going to rename it in the future, but if you want to noodle through it, that's it. And I will send this along to you so you can distribute it as needed, the entire presentation. It's high level. Again, if you read something and it brings a question to mind, I want to be able to answer it so you can move forward.
Wonderful. Well, one last call for questions, folks. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of move forward with our some of my wrap-up items. Any questions, any comments anybody would like to make?
Yeah, one more question. So again, this is my first meeting here. Really, I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Glenn, for the presentation. One of the things I'm curious about learning more is just general applications and examples of other use cases for the PMP license. Partially just because I'm interested in exploring other pathways in my own career and how this could change with that. What would you say are the best resources for that? I imagine attending other PMI events and networking and learning about it in that way would be great. Any particular recommendations just in terms of resources that PMI offers of the best places to look for that?
So it was mentioned earlier before we started, projectmanagement.com has conversations, forums that you can ask, and the types of use cases that you're looking for. It is a wealth of knowledge. You can go out and see what people are talking about, and they will answer. People who are experts will answer you if you have a question. It is a great resource that's available.
Thank you.
Well, if there's nothing else, thank you very much for inviting me. I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and we will continue to have updates to a number of the credentials. So something that you may have heard something about in the past that maybe kind of turned you off about it, come back and look, because there are a number of these are being updated, and they're going to come out much more relevant maybe than what you had thought they were in the past.
Wonderful. Well, Glenn, thank you for joining. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with our chapter. It was a very informative presentation. We greatly appreciate it, and thank you once again.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everyone attending. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay. Well, on that note, folks, you can see on my screen, I'm going to kind of go through our closing information here, and then I'll close out by providing the screen where you can get your claim code for PDUs. But I wanted to mention once again, please check out our website. We have a number of events coming up. I know that there are some in the works that'll kind of cover some of what Glenn just went over, as far as some of the changes to the latest PMBOK is one of the sessions we have planned that should be coming out here shortly, and along with a number of others. I am working on something to potentially someone from the Football Hall of Fame to possibly recap their project that is going on with the expansion down there, and a number of other items that we're planning for later this year. So please keep checking the website for upcoming events, and keep an eye out for things as they're announced in the Monday Pulse and the various chapter communications. Moving on then, I think most people know how to keep up with their PDUs. I'll leave this up for just a moment, but there's some websites there that you can use as resources, such as Velociteach and some other podcast options out there. And then last but not least, what everyone has been waiting for, there's the PDU claim code and PDU identifier. For those of you who, like myself, need to claim their PDUs for this session, I will leave that up. And outside of that, folks, I don't have anything else to share. If anyone had any last questions or statements you'd like to make, now is the time. Joe, I know you mentioned you may be saying something, but I kind of dominated most of the conversation, so I'm sorry if you had something to add.
Nope, you're all good, Andy. Did a good job explaining everything. We have a lot of exciting programs coming up, so visit our website and come check it out. Check us out again and again.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point. And